House, and no, we're not talking about the Hugh Laurie TV series, is a 1986 horror comedy produced by Sean Cunningham and directed by Steve Miner. The music was composed by Harry Manfredini, so this was basically a big Friday the 13th reunion. And we can go a little further with this. Kane Hodder was the stunt coordinator for its sequel, House 2, The Second Story. So, in the vein of a typical Stephen King novel, we've got a horror novelist, Roger Cobb, suffering from PTSD after fighting in Vietnam, getting divorced, and mysteriously losing his son. At the start of the film, his crazy aunt also commits suicide, so at this point, Cobb doesn't have much to live for. At first, it seems like a pretty standard thriller. Cobb, struggling to write his next book after being pressured by his agent, decides to move into his aunt's creepy house to find solitude. He wants to write about his experiences in Vietnam, and the film constantly shows flashbacks of him fighting alongside his platoon. His closest friend is a big guy who goes by the name Big Ben, who ends up getting captured and tortured by the Viet Cong before Roger can do anything about it. Then there's an eccentric neighbor, Harold, played by George Wendt, who turns out to be an obsessive fan of Cobb's, but who also seems to burst into Roger's home at all the wrong moments. He's the obligatory comic relief, and for a while, he is the only humor present in the film, although he is pretty funny.
Just a senile old hag, really. Wouldn't be surprised if someone just got fed up and offed her, you know what I mean?
She was my aunt.
Heart of gold, though.
Of course, the house is haunted, and things start to slowly build up. It moves really slowly, and while they try to create some sort of atmosphere, it really drags its feet trying to get us to where it wants to go. Eventually, we do start to see some creatures. There's this gross thing that attacks Roger in his closet. It kind of looks like they borrowed it from Evil Dead 2. And then his ex-wife comes to visit him, only to turn into some fat witch. The practical effects look pretty good, although in all seriousness, it's hard to take something like this seriously. This is where it starts to become a goofy comedy. Roger also has a hot neighbor who turns out to just want a babysitter. She drops off her little boy at Roger's house, and Roger ends up trying to save him from gremlins that try to kidnap him by pulling him up into the fire escape. The last 20 minutes are the whole reason to see this film, as this is where it all comes together. Roger discovers a secret passage by breaking the glass mirror in his bathroom. He gets attacked by a bat skeleton and ends up finding his son, who is kidnapped by his undead friend, Big Ben. Ben, who kind of looks like Jason from Friday the 13th Part 7, is pissed off at Roger for not killing him in Vietnam because he ended up getting tortured by the Viet Cong. He chases Roger through the house as Roger tries to survive.
And ran out of ammunition.
It's an effects extravaganza and satisfyingly unexpected given how slow-paced the movie's been up to this point. The film was a hit when it first came out, but it's not a movie I hear being brought up all that much today. It was one of those movies I'd heard about as a kid. I used to run across it all the time at the video store, but I never cared to check it out. I'd recommend it just for the effects alone, although it does have its campy moments that make it alright. Either way, it's a fun watch.